Halo teman-teman, ketemu lagi dengan saya di channel Joni Yulianto dan hari ini saya bersama seorang tamu CBM Indonesia. Kebetulan saya sedang ada di kantor CBM dan sedang diajak oleh teman-teman CBM untuk menemui seorang tamu dari CBM Global Disability Inclusion. Dan beliau adalah salah seorang direktur di CBM Global Disability Inclusion, namanya Pak Anderson. So, hello Anderson. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Thank you for your willingness to be in the frame of my YouTube channel. So,
thank you and most welcome.
Yeah. So this is actually, as I told you earlier, this is actually a channel that started during the COVID-19, as I have no idea what else to do after works and no way to go out and socialize to people. So then I created this channel just as part of my hobby, but also to share the things that I'm doing related to disability sometimes, but sometimes also related to whatever I do.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So welcome Anderson to Indonesia and to Jakarta at the moment. And maybe would you like to first introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, my brother. My name is Anderson Gitonga, and I come from Kenya. That is Nairobi, Kenya. That is where I live. And I work for CBM Global as the inclusive development. So I had a program area called CBID, Community-Based Inclusive Development. Yeah.
Would you briefly describe a little bit what is disability inclusive development? I think this is quite something that have been heard a lot by disability activists, but maybe not many of us really understand what is disability community-based inclusive development.
Thank you very much again. Community-based inclusive development is basically a situation where you look into the various barriers that persons with disabilities face within the community, because there are many kinds of barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from participating on an equal basis with others. So it's all about trying to identify these barriers and working to ensure that they are either eliminated or reduced so that persons with disabilities are able to effectively participate in development, just like those who don't have disabilities. So it's all about identifying barriers within the community and then addressing those barriers in a way to eliminate, to ensure that there is enhanced participation of persons with disabilities. Yeah.
So when you talk about barrier, what does it mean? Does it a barrier that comes from the community, barriers that come from the infrastructure, or what do you?
Yeah, the barriers within the community may be as a result of many factors. Basically, we say they could also be created by the community themselves. For instance, when a community builds a school, maybe a primary school, and doesn't factor in the various accessibility issues of persons who have physical disabilities, people who may be deaf, people who may be visually impaired, then that school in itself creates barriers and excludes persons with disabilities. Yeah. So that's a barrier created by the community. And it is the community that can address that kind of a barrier to ensure that in coming up with social projects, in coming up with the development projects, then they consider everybody in that community. they get to understand that in any community, we'll have people who have different needs, and that the needs of all those people need to be factored in coming up with development projects. Yeah.
So then the barrier could be in the various different level, yeah?
Yes. The barriers could be at different levels. It could be a barrier at the community level. For example, the whole issue of attitude, the whole issue of discrimination based on prejudices that are there in the community, which is sometimes a big barrier and which needs to be addressed through awareness. Issues of stigma majorly at the community level. A barrier could also be at the level of policy, institutional barriers, procedures within maybe government systems that prevent people from participating on the basis of their disability. We also have barriers which comes at that level that need to be addressed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is very useful.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add?
So what I can add is that every other institution, every other person within a community has a big responsibility in terms of addressing these barriers. Organizations of persons with disabilities are key in terms of also addressing the barriers that people face within the community, and that there need to be closer consultation between the various stakeholders. Not one single institution is able to eliminate or deal with the barriers, but it requires a kind of a holistic approach where the various stakeholders within the government, within the community, politicians, the private sector, religious circles all coming together in order to address the barriers that persons with disabilities face within a community. Yeah.
All right. I have several more questions, but maybe let me summarize first for viewer who are not English speaker.
Okay.
Ya, jadi Pak Anderson tadi sudah menyampaikan bahwa beliau adalah Global Disability Inclusion Director di CBM, dan beliau juga menyampaikan tentang salah satu yang menjadi tanggung jawabnya adalah terkait dengan program Community Based Inclusive Development atau pembangunan inklusif berbasis komunitas, yang intinya adalah pembangunan inklusif berbasis komunitas itu adalah program-program, upaya-upaya yang dilakukan untuk meminimalkan atau mengatasi hambatan-hambatan yang dialami oleh kawan-kawan difabel. Nah, hambatan itu bisa terjadi karena perilaku masyarakat, gitu ya, karena prasangka, stigma dan seterusnya. Dia juga bisa terjadi karena sarana prasarana pada lingkungan yang kurang mendukung, begitu, atau karena hal-hal yang berhubungan dengan kebijakan, dengan pranata, dengan aturan main yang ada di masyarakat yang tidak ramah pada penyandang disabilitas atau difabel. Sebagai akibat dari hambatan itu, kemudian difabel bisa menjadi tereliminasi, tereksklusi, jadi tidak dapat mengakses apa yang seharusnya mereka bisa akses. Nah, right. So just now you talk about the role of organization of person with disabilities. It could be consultation, etc. And later I'm going to ask more about that, and maybe from your perspective in your country. But before that, maybe can you a little bit elaborate? In what is this CBM word, or in particular your role within the disability community-based inclusive development project? What you are initiating in different countries in this program?
Yeah, thank you again. As the CBM Global, disability inclusion, the main focus of our work is to, again, to program in a way that organizations of persons with disabilities are included. So our CBID work focuses on more enhanced inclusion and involvement of organizations of persons with disabilities, so that we encourage our country offices to be working with OPDs. Number one, to strengthen OPDs, and we are not saying that they are weak. We are saying that we have a lot to learn from OPDs, and together, collaboratively, we can work to ensure that we strengthen each other. We are strengthening OPDs to be able to meet their mandate, because we know that across the world, OPDs have played a central role in terms of causing change, in terms of bringing about inclusion. And you know that the moment you work with OPDs, then those kind of programs become very, very sustainable, because they're able to continue the work even after we have finished funding. They're able to continue doing inclusion work within the community. They are also legitimate, recognized by government, and they are right holders, so they have the mandate to question their government. They have the mandate to advocate to their government in order for those governments to continuously provide services to persons with disabilities. So we believe in OPDs, and we work to enhance and promote their role or their mandate, within communities where we work. Yeah.
Oh, oke. Ya. Jadi teman-teman sedikit summary lagi. Jadi salah satu yang menjadi mandat dari CBM Global Disability Inclusion adalah memastikan CBM di negara-negara yang beroperasi itu kemudian bekerja sama dengan organisasi penyandang disabilitas atau difabel, dan memampukan organisasi difabel untuk menjalankan program pembangunan inklusif yang berbasis komunitas. Nah, selain itu juga program CBM ingin memastikan gitu ya, kira-kira agar ada keberlanjutan. Jadi setelah selesai melalui dukungan CBM, kemudian ada keberlanjutan yang kemudian bisa terus dilanjutkan oleh organisasi-organisasi difabel yang ada dalam membangun iklim yang lebih inklusif begitu. Alright, so now actually move to more question related to your experience in the past, if you don't mind.
Okay, all right.
I believe that your background as a disability activist, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
You have been leading the United
Disabled Persons of Kenya.
Yeah, United Disabled Persons of
which
Kenya.
Is the umbrella organization of organizations of persons with disabilities.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit maybe about the organization and what works you have done with the organization. I mean, I read from your LinkedIn like 8 years already as a chief executive officer of the organization.
Thank you. Yes, for a long period of time, actually, all my life, for about 26 years of working, I've done quite some work around promoting organizations of persons with disabilities, working to strengthen organizations of persons with disabilities. Back in my country, involved a lot around advocacy by leading the umbrella organization in Kenya in terms of ensuring that it becomes strong and that it meets its mandate of conducting national level advocacy, where we organized ourselves by ensuring that we assess ourselves and see what is it that we can do better, what are the barriers, what are the challenges that we face, and how to address those challenges as an organization, and then being in a better position to do advocacy within the government, both at the national level, at the local level, at the sub-regional level, and also at the international level. So in Kenya, the movement is fairly strong, fairly organized. OPDs play their role in terms of tracking the compliance of the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and where there are gaps, they in a way develop advocacy messages, advocacy strategies in order to target the government or target the decision makers, and in that there is involvement of various stakeholders within the government, the non-governmental or civil society organizations, independent commissions that play a role in enhancing human rights, as well as also ensuring that as much as possible we are carrying on board all of us, people with various types of disabilities, particularly the underrepresented groups, that they also brought on board during meetings, and that we provide, accommodations, reasonable accommodation for people to be able to express themselves. So for years we achieved a lot in terms of influencing various laws. Even our constitution, when it was being framed, UDPK played a big role to ensure that the convention is enshrined, is incorporated. Elements of the convention are incorporated in our constitution as well as our many laws that are being developed. However, we recognize that it is one thing to have good laws, but then it is something else different to ensure that those laws are implemented. So we have programs now where we embarked on pushing for the implementation of the laws that have been developed at the various levels, community and national level. And in a way, we were able to achieve quite a lot. But again, as I say, a lot more needed to be done to actualize the actual inclusion of persons with disabilities in all spheres of development. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a follow-up question on that. You mentioned a lot about the achievement in terms of the law and regulation. So in your country context, what is the challenges in terms of law implementation? Maybe situation and challenges.
Yeah, the biggest challenge in terms of implementation of laws is where we have sometimes very soft laws, laws that are developed quickly, and there is no mechanism of implementing those laws. So, for example, you may see a law that is very keen on promoting the inclusion of persons with disabilities or learners with disabilities within the learning environment, but then the budgets are not provided. There are no work plans to ensure that those laws are implemented. So if, for example, you are pushing, for an inclusive social protection program, and then you don't provide enough resources, you don't provide budgets, then the law will just remain as people continue to suffer as they don't gain from the services that the law intended that they gain from. So that has been a major gap. The disconnect between policy, between law, and then between practice in terms of actual programs to ensure that those laws are being implemented. Yeah.
So it's quite a common situation, yeah, when the norm is quite clear, but then very lack of connection with other subsystem on implementing the norm.
Yeah. Correct.
I believe beyond the 8 years as a chief executive officer, you have much longer experience within the disability movement and activist arena in Kenya. So, would you share maybe challenges of the disability movement in your country and things that we in Indonesia can learn from that?
Yeah, there are quite a number of challenges within the context of disability movement, and they range from, you know, questions around capacity of OPDs to be able to meet their mandate, you know, lack of resources, politics within OPDs where people don't agree and then they go into destructive, you know, politics, not a constructive politics. Issues around OPDs not be able to include everybody in their work, and therefore certain persons with disabilities continue to be left behind, and they are not included in the push for good policies or all projects. Obviously, there are the issue of barriers to effective participation. May it be physical barriers, you know, accessibility, language and communication barriers to be able to fully, you know, express. The lack of research and data to be able to influence evidence, to be able to frame advocacy messages correctly. So all those, you know, barriers play to disadvantage OPDs as well as persons with disabilities in those countries. Funding is a big issue, as well as also, you know, personnel, so that many OPDs are not able to attract professionals. You know, they do because they don't have money to pay those professionals or to pay persons with disabilities who are professionals. So issues around capacity are major in terms of preventing OPDs from effectively doing what they are supposed to be doing.
What about issues around consolidation amongst different groups of disability?
Yes,
That's something that we are struggling with.
It's across. It's all over the world. It's all over the world. The question of fragmentation. OPDs are fragmented sometimes, but again, it should not discourage anybody. It doesn't mean that when you're fragmented, when you are not consolidated, you know, you still cannot work together. So people can have their divergent views, different views, but then they need to focus on the actual issues that affect them.
So how you deal with that?
The way to deal with those is, for instance, simple ways of coming up with committees, you know, working groups that incorporate everybody, some kind of loose coalitions, so that those who don't agree with me, then we can meet under a coalition, a loose coalition, and then be able to articulate the issues that face all of us, irrespective of our various interests. So that has played, it has been a good strategy in terms of ensuring that even if we are divided, we still can agree on common issues that we can push with the government.
What is your opinion around regeneration? Regeneration. Regeneration in the movement.
Regionalization? Is that the same?
I mean, like getting a new generation that come in the movement.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this question actually comes from your experience that, you know, after like 8 years as chief executive officer, then you move to other role, move to a global role, and I believe there is someone that continuing your role in the organization. So what do you think about transferring leadership to a new generation?
It is true that in what we do, we need to prepare others to be able to take after we have left, because each one of us is going to retire. In whatever we do, will not be there forever. We will not be there permanently. So more important of preparing future leaders, particularly the young people, to be able to acquire skills in terms of leadership, in terms of movement, and so that when then older people leave, then the young people can take up those opportunities and be able to do work. That requires quite some commitment, quite some passion, and quite some planning, and also quite some flexibility and transparency in terms of ensuring that what we do in the movement, in a way, we are bringing up younger leaders to be able to take up the mantle once we have left. And we were very keen on that at UDPK, mentoring young ones, and they were able to take it up even after we left, and the organizations are still running, even if we have left those organizations and gone to other places. Yeah.
Well, this is very important. So the things that needs to be prepared is making sure that we are going to another role, but then we have to make sure that there is someone that is prepared to take the leadership role.
Correct.
After us, right?
Correct. Every organization needs to be keen on that. That the current leaders that may be there will not be there forever. So prepare others to take it up once these others have left. Yeah.
So thank you. So
thank you.
The closing question, maybe not really a question, but I'm hoping you can make a statement, encouragement for young generation of disability movement here in Indonesia. What do you think that is important for the young generation of the disability movement here?
Yeah.
What you can share?
What I can share with the young generation is an encouragement that, in my experience in terms of disability inclusion, way back several years, when I look into several years ago, and the way it is now, in terms of inclusion, it's better. We see, for example, building code, that are framed to be inclusive. We see infrastructure out there in terms of roads that are better in terms of inclusion. We see laws and programs that are good in terms of inclusion, not perfect. And I would want to tell the young people that this never came overnight. There were people back in those years who are pushing, for these kind of changes. And therefore, a lot of what we want to see, a lot of our desires will not come overnight. Change is very progressive, change is gradual, it doesn't happen overnight. And therefore, we need to persevere, we need to be consistent, and we don't need to give up. Whatever we believe in, let's pursue it. Let's talk to the right people who can make right decisions on our issues. Let's have the right relationships in terms of stakeholders who can help us push, for example, for inclusion within our community. And that way, progressively and gradually, we'll be able to realize certain changes, in a small way. And even the convention is clear that in terms of change, in terms of what governments are required to do to ensure inclusion, it will be progressive, and that it will not happen in one night, but slowly, and that is what we need to be pushing for and to be aware of. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Hoping that this could be like another of strong encouragement for our young generation of disability.
Yeah.
Terima kasih teman-teman sudah mengikuti vlog ini. Silahkan klik like, share, dan sebarluaskan konten ini. Nanti akan ada caption yang menerjemahkan bahasa Inggris kita, dan kita ketemu lagi di konten berikutnya. Salam inklusi.